It's that time, and we are continuing to get parents and students ready to head back to school.
And as we head into a new school year, more and more schools across the country are implementing bans on cell phones.
Just yesterday, California Governor Gavin Newsom sent a letter to school leaders in his state urging districts to restrict cell phone use during school hours.
And as of this spring, Ohio, Indiana, and Florida have all banned cell phones in the classroom. And there's talk of doing the same thing here in Michigan.
7 News Detroit reporter Sarah Michaels is looking at the total picture of cell phone policies in our communities. She's also sharing what one superintendent says their district is now doing, plus talking to a parent and student about how they feel about their school's cell phone policy.
In a time where more and more schools are banning cell phones in the classroom, we're asking the question, could your school be next?
Believe it or not, about 6 years ago when I was visiting a classroom, I walked in and students were actually on their phones talking on the phone.
In her 10 years as superintendent of Hazel Park Schools, Amy Krupe has watched as students' relationships with their cell phones have evolved.
We were much freer in the first part of the time when I came to the Hazel Park community, allowed them as more learning tools and items inside the classroom. But I think what we found over time is that changes a little bit.
Krupe tells me that a growing addiction to the technology has made it more difficult for students to focus and to learn. So the district has had to get stricter with their rules.
At the elementary, we cannot have cell phones at all. At the junior high, they have them. They need to be put away out of sight. Sometimes as a special reward, they might open up lunchtime. At the high school, students can walk between classes and have their phones out. They can also have them at lunch, but they may not use them during the classroom time, which is a differentiation from where it was a few years ago.
Other local schools have adjusted their policies as well. At East Lansing High School, phones are banned in classrooms or in campus common spaces. That's during instructional time. Detroit Public Schools Community District requires students to keep phones out of reach during instructional time. Dearborn City School District policies are dependent on the grade level. High school students can have their phones, but they must be off during school hours.
I know that I've heard from some, even students, the difference inside the classroom from not having those phones as a distraction. I think it's important.
Clearly, there are as many cell phone policies as there are schools out there. And just like how each school has their own specific policy, each family has their own opinion as well.
He's like full throttle during the summer. My husband and I were just having a conversation. I was telling him, you know you're about to get weaned off of that phone, right?
Cam Anderson is going into 8th grade at West Bloomfield Middle School, where he says their cell phones are not allowed to be out during class. He and his mom, Nicole, tell me they're fine with that as long as he can keep it on him.
The times that we're living in right now, like they had a lockdown towards the end of the school year last year, and he and I had to communicate by his cell phone. If there's a crisis, I want to know what's going on because I couldn't call into the school. That was the only way we could communicate.
I just didn't know what to do, so I just went in the corner hiding and got my phone out. Called my mom and my dad and my sisters.
In that moment, were you grateful to have a cell phone?
Yes.
And were you grateful that he had
Extremely.
one? Growing research does highlight the negative effects of having cell phones in class. A Central Michigan University study found that for students between 7th and 12th grade, learning increased when smartphone use decreased. States Ohio, Indiana, and Florida have banned cell phones in the classroom entirely. Data from the National Center for Education Statistics, published in 2024, shows that 76% of all public schools prohibit non-academic use of cell phones during school hours. The data suggests that the restriction of cell phones is necessary to keep cyberbullying and drug use down. What do you think about completely banning cell phones from being in schools?
I don't agree. Sometimes they need phones. After school is definitely needed.
I understand though. There is some trepidation from families and parents that they want those phones for their children to be safe, and I have a daughter too. However, we need to trust our schools and the people inside them that we have good plans in place to keep our kids safe.
Now, at this point in time, Michigan has never issued a statewide policy when it comes to cell phones. But one thing we do know for sure, these aren't going anywhere. In Bloomfield Hills, Sarah Michaels, 7 News Detroit.
All right, Sarah, thanks so much for that perspective.